Hi, everyone. My name is John Kinney, and I'm with the National Sports Media Association. Today, I'm joined by the 2023 Delaware Sportscaster of the Year and color analyst for the Delaware Blue Hens, Bill Harman. Bill, thanks for joining me today.
John, thanks very much for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Bill, what does it mean to you to be named Delaware's Sportscaster of the Year for 2023?
Well, it's certainly a great honor. I'm not one that cares about that type of thing, but I certainly feel very humbled and honored that you all were willing to recognize me. And there are a lot of great people in our state, and so for me to be able to accept this award, I'm very happy. Thank you very much.
You've called basketball and football for a while at Delaware. How have you build your relationship with your play-by-play announcer, Scott, over the years?
Well, I'm lucky. I think I have by far the best play-by-play guy. He is not only a great professional, but he's a dear friend of mine. Pardon me. We've been working together for a number of years. There is nobody better prepared than Scott. There is nobody that gives me better openings than him, and he is just terrific to work with. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing it. He's a dear friend and a consummate professional.
Did you have any mentors that helped you along the way as you went into becoming a color analyst?
Well, that's a great question. I did not study the area of communications. I was a finance guy. And when I moved back to Delaware in 1996 as a coach, I coached football, basketball, and baseball here at the high school level. I was very fortunate that radio station WDEL asked me to kind of help out very casually in 1997. It was my first year back for basketball. And I said, hey, I'll be happy just to come and sit and take some stats and things like that. Well, the next thing you know, I've got a headset. And they said, put it on. And this is two gentlemen by the name of Lynn Holmquist and Don Volz, who both retired. But boy, were they just terrific. And I said, well, what's going to happen? They said, don't worry about it. It's radio. They're not going to know what is going on. So if you make any mistakes, it won't matter. And I figured I would be okay after that. But I worked extensively with those two gentlemen, and they were just great. They were play-by-play guys, and they were great, and they gave me a great opportunity. It was a lot of fun. I got to travel around the state and see a lot of programs, got to work with them and a few others. There's another gentleman at WDL now by the name of Sean Green. I got to meet Scott Klatskin along the way, who then became my partner for radio and some TV work at the University of Delaware. So I was very fortunate. I've had some unbelievably great people to work with. They have helped me so much, and I feel extremely fortunate to have had the company of these gentlemen throughout my short career.
What's the biggest advice that you have received as you've started now your career as being a color analyst?
Well, these guys were great, and they kind of let me find my own way, John. And I think that for somebody like me that is a coach, and I try to approach my analysis work as a coach. So I probably maybe have a little bit more coach speak than some. I'm not into a lot of colloquialisms. I let the play-by-play guy, they can go wherever they want. But I've been so fortunate, John, to have people that kind of lead me with great questions in the right directions. And for me, then, it becomes so much easier because I'm basically just watching the game as if I was a coach and then commenting on whatever I see going out there. So not a lot of that. They kind of let me have my own way, and I was very fortunate for that. And sometimes you just kind of stumble into things.
How's the transition been from being a coach, watching film, and then now having to break down live action as being a color commentator instead of having to watch it as on replay?
It's a great question, and I think I really approach it almost the same now as I have, and I've had the great honor of working with a gentleman by the name of Artie Kempner, who's with Fox Sports. He is a director and one of my closest friends. I coached several of his children at Wilmington Friends School, where I coach football. And I've learned so much from Artie, just kind of being around him and working with him, that sometimes you just kind of got to let the action speak for itself. And I now have tried not to overanalyze it from a coaching standpoint. What I'm trying to do, John, is give the audience, the listener or the audience, if they're watching, something that maybe they might not know or might not have appreciated on the particular play. And as you know, radio and TV are different. In radio, you got to get in and you got to get out, and that's fine. That's kind of the way you might coach it as well. TV, you can have a little bit more of a conversation, and so you just kind of adapt that way. But I would tell you that it's not that dissimilar between watching film as a coach, because I'm looking for certain things that then translate to when I watch it in live action. And if we have the advantage of maybe a replay, that gives you a really good opportunity to break something down that maybe the viewer or the listener might not know, just because of their lack of familiarity with the subject matter.
With you being a coach, does that help you give a better insight to the viewers? With you being as a coach, having more insight than a analyst that hasn't been a player or a coach?
Well, I don't want to say I think it does. I'd like to hope it helps a little bit. I just try to mold it in my style, John. I just really enjoy talking about the players when you have extra information on them. I like talking about the coaches. Of course, as a coach, I probably tend to speak a little bit more about coaches because I have great respect for all they do, especially at the high school. I mean, I have it at every level, but the high school guys, aren't making millions of dollars, and it's a labor of love, and they give up tremendous amount of time from their families, and they do a great job. We're very fortunate here in the state of Delaware to have some really terrific coaches in all three sports that I'm involved in. So it really works out well for me in that aspect.
What advice would you give young journalists trying to pursue a career in broadcasting or just journalism in general?
Well, I certainly can't speak for the bulk of it. You and others, Dave and Scott and Lynn and Don and Artie would know way better than I would. But I think what you've got to do, at least in my humble opinion, is kind of find your own style. What works for you, and hopefully it then works for the listener and or the viewer. You've got to be well prepared. I think you want to be passionate about what you talk about. And that doesn't mean you have to have been a player or a coach. I mean, some of the great analysts and play-by-play people that I have witnessed sometimes maybe didn't even play the sport. It's just like, I don't think you have to have played the sport to be a great coach. You've got to have the fundamentals of it. And then how does your attitude, how does that passion, are you honest with your players? And I think that's what we try to do, at least on our broadcast at the University of Delaware. We try to give the listener a little bit more than maybe they're seeing, or they obviously, if they're listening on radio, can't watch. And we try to make sure we highlight our players, because these are college guys who are always trying to do their best. And I would think that I believe in being way more positive. Now, these aren't national broadcasts. I get why certain national guys have to do it a certain way, but I always try to come at it from how would I feel if I was the player listening to it, or maybe a parent of a player or a grandparent. And so we try to emphasize the positive, without going overboard. And I don't think that I hope we're not labeled as super homers, but of course we know it's the University of Delaware, and we have great respect for the program. Ryan Carty and Martin Inglesby, who's the basketball head coach, Ryan Carty, the football. I mean, very fortunate to work with those guys and their staffs. They are unbelievably accessible to us, and it makes our job a lot easier. So I just think kind of familiarizing yourself with the programs, the people behind it, and then when you can have an interface with the players, that makes it even more fun and more colorful, so to speak.
How do you build your relationship with the players and coaches throughout the program?
Well, that's a great question. Obviously, you've got to go to their practices, and they've also got to know that you're going to, when I say have their back, that you're going to try to be positive. And I think that's what we try to do. And our job is not, or my job certainly is not to uber critique, hey, that play didn't work because it was a bad scheme, or geez, the left tackle just can't handle his assignment. That's not kind of my role. I might mention, hey, the rush end got by our left tackle. Maybe he didn't move his feet quite quick enough, or he overset, but that's something that's not necessarily super critical of the player, but more just what happened with his technique, where the listener or the watcher, okay, that kind of makes sense to me. So you've got to build a trust up with the coaches. You've got to be around the program as much as you can. And then I think, as I just said, being positive as you can without being overboard, I think builds up that kind of relationship. And I'm very fortunate. Both Ryan and Martin are just great friends of mine, and they help me out immeasurably, as do their staff. And we're really lucky here at in the state of Delaware and the University of Delaware to have two great programs and two coaches that I admire greatly.
Thanks again, Bill, for taking the time to speak with me, and congratulations again on your 2023 Delaware Sportscaster of the Year award.
John, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Give my best to everyone, and good luck with the event, which I'm unfortunately not able to attend.
Thank you.